Welcome once again. This is Humanist TV Africa, and this is Kato Mukasa, your host for today. And in the studios is Dennis Bongole, who is based in Uganda. This is Kato Mukasa, a Ugandan lawyer and an enthusiastic human rights defender, and of course, a humanist who is behind the team that has come up with this Humanist TV Africa. Welcome again to yet another beautiful show. We want to encourage you to subscribe on our YouTube channel and Facebook page, Humanist TV Africa. Please do subscribe to our Humanist TV Africa Facebook page, and also to our YouTube channel, and hit that notification bell so that we can be able to notify every time we come up with a new video. Remember, being a TV, we aspire to entertain you, of course, in a very secular, meaningful, rational way. We aspire to educate you as you educate us. We shall be having that conversation with people all over the world who can be hosted on our station and then in our studios, and then we discuss matters with them. It means we're going to be learning from you, our dear viewers. We of course know that we have a lot to learn from you. You are more informed in most cases on a number of things which we may not know. So we shall have a talkback segment where through talkback we have your views aired right on this TV, and we hear from you. We are going to have a team of our researchers, a team of our investigators, a team of our journalists on the streets of Accra, Ghana, on the streets of Lagos, Nigeria, Abuja, Nigeria. We shall have our team of journalists airing live from Kampala, from Masaka, from Barara, and those other cities. We shall have a team of journalists airing from Rwanda, from Burundi. Remember, we are humanists and we are banking on our humanist network, which is spread throughout Africa. You're going to have shows from Zimbabwe, from Zambia, from Malawi, from South Africa, and all these other countries, from Tanzania, from Kenya. We are setting up studios. Some of them have been already set up. We are going to be giving you a very combined, very well researched, very original, authentic information from all over Africa. First, our focus is Africa. In business, it's important to specialize. We are specializing on African affairs, and then we shall move on and roll to the rest of the world. Of course, we shall have news items where we handle issues that are beyond Africa, issues that actually go beyond Africa. We have been handling the Gaza situation. We have been handling the Gaza situation, for example, of recent. We have been handling the conflict between Israel and Gaza. So it means that we are going to go beyond Africa. But our focus basically is Africa. This is Humanist TV Africa, and I want to welcome you to yet a beautiful segment of this show. This show is called Profiles. Profiles. Now, Profiles is a show where I bring to you the most important people in the world, but also the most important people that shaped my thinking.
Now, the world is made up of people, but there are people who are actually very important. You have to accept people who influence the world actually very, very important. People who have made inventions, people who have created things, people who have come up with formulas, medicines, scientific research. These are important people. We can agree to disagree that some people are more important than others. Let us agree on that. Some people are more important when it comes to enriching the world, when it comes to contributing to the survival of humanity. Some people are more important in the lives of others. Yet some other people are more dangerous in the lives of others. You can say that Hitler was important. Hitler was dangerous. Hitler killed over 6 million Jews. So there's no way I can stand here and say Hitler was very important. Nazism is very important. Racism is very important. There's no way I can come here and praise racism. There's no way I can come here and praise Nazism. That is too bad. I mean, some people are dangerous to humanity. A person who picks guns and shoot others is dangerous to humanity, and there is no way I can profile that person here, maybe to give you lessons so that you avoid doing the things they did. So when I say people are important, yes, but some people are more important in a way that they shaped the world, in a way that they contributed to the thinking of our own people, including myself. Now, today I'm going to share with you about 40 people in brief that actually shaped my thinking. I have hundreds of people that today I won't be able to talk about. Today I won't be able to talk about Shakespeare, for example. Yet it's very, very influential. I'm going to be talking about a few others with quotations, and of course I'll be able to also tell you the books they wrote so that you can be able to inspire young ones and tell them, can you please get the book which this guy talked about? Can you please look up this author? Can you please look up this poet? Can you please look up this novelist? He must have done something important. This lady must have done something important. So that's why I'm here. With profiling, I give you profiles of politicians, profiles of writers, profiles of poets, profiles of activists, thinkers, human rights defenders, great people that have contributed to the betterment of the world, that have given us theories on which we have been able to build a strong world together. Then let us start with what we have in our kitty by profiling some of these people that have actually made a very important contribution in our world. Now, this one simply came as something which we are going to look at in the beginning. It's very important. In Denmark, there are libraries where you can borrow a person instead of a book to listen to their life story for 30 minutes. This innovative, brilliant project is active in 50 countries. It is called the Human Library. I want to begin with that information. It is called the Human Library. In Denmark, you can go to a library and borrow a person, not a book. Borrow a person, and this person shares his own story, her own story with you in 30 minutes and can change your world. It's called interpersonal sharing. Now, these are things which I want us to adopt in Uganda, which I want us to adopt in Kenya, in Rwanda, in Ethiopia, in Tanzania, in Malawi, Zambia, Mozambique. We can borrow these methods where we have people willing to share their stories. This is what we are doing here at Humans TV Africa. Share a story. It can change someone's life for the better. Now, let us go to another slide, Dennis. Thank you so much for that introduction. That is a very good introduction. Ernest Hemingway, one of the best writers of my time, is a guy called Ernest Hemingway. Ernest Hemingway wrote quite a number of books which basically influenced me and which basically were so popular at this time. Now, one of the quotations they said is, in order to write about life, first you must live it. And that is absolutely right. In order to write about life, first you must live it. Ernest Hemingway tells you that there is no you can write something you haven't lived. That's why some of us don't write fiction. I don't write fiction. I write reality. Now, some books are fictitious. For example, Bible is a book of fiction. It has a bit of right facts, but also so many lies. Now, Ernest Hemingway tells you that you have to write something that actually have lived. Now, if someone is sharing their personal stories, pay attention. Then next from away from Ernest Hemingway. Yes, Napoleon Hill. I've read many books by this author. I've read many books by this author called Napoleon Hill. Is a motivational speaker and writer. Is a motivational speaker and writer. He talks about wealth creation. He talks about riches when you read his works. I encourage you to simply Google Napoleon Hill. Now, in this brief, it says most of us go through life as failures because we are waiting for the time to be right, to start doing something worthwhile. Do not wait. The time will never be just right. Start where you stand and work whatever tools you may have at your command, and better tools will be found as you go along. I love that quotation from Napoleon Hill. I can tell you that the person who pushed me into entrepreneurship, Professor Mtesa gave me the book of Napoleon Hill. Gave me the book of Napoleon Hill. And those books, 1, 2, 3 books, how to make it in life, how to think critically, how to create wealth, those books pushed me. Now, Napoleon Hill is a brilliant mastermind. It was from his books that I learned about mastermind. He pushed me into entrepreneurship. And right now, he tells you, start from where you stand. This is why we are here starting with Humanist TV Africa. We are starting from where we stand. We are starting with a few cameras. We are starting with a few laptops and computers here and there. We are a team that is starting from scratch. And this is what Napoleon Hill tells us: start from where you are. You can make an impact. Start from where you are. Look for Napoleon Hill. I've told you he's a motivational writer who writes about investment and saving and entrepreneurship. Look up that name, Napoleon Hill. You're going to find 10 plus more books by that one author, Napoleon Hill, a great writer. Then Napoleon Hill, of course, is an American author. Don't forget that. Now, this is another brilliant author called George Orwell. George Orwell is a brilliant author. And George Orwell, of course, some of you know the most important book he wrote. The most important book George Orwell wrote, and most of us studied it in school. If you remember, all men are equal, but other men are equal than others, are more equal than others. That's the question I remember in my head. It's not on the screen. But George Orwell wrote. You remember those books, Animal Farm and others. George Orwell, one of the best writers the world has seen, is called George Orwell, one of the best writers. In this quotation, it says what? George says that it's frightful that people who are so ignorant should have so much influence. And he's right. Someone who is ignorant is the politician today in Uganda. Someone who is so much ignorant is the one making decisions for you. So when you elect people who are going to be your members of parliament, who simply don't know even how sexes differ, who simply don't know even the basic science, and they are your MPs in Uganda, what do you expect? You have got a failure in parliament. You have got a mediocre in parliament. So when you push a mediocre in parliament of Uganda, expect to get mediocrity. This is what George Orwell tells you. George Orwell, one of the most brilliant writers to emerge from Europe, is that guy, George Orwell. Then let us go to another author. Yes, Democritus, one of the best thinkers to come out of Greece. This guy, I loved him. This guy influenced my thinking. This guy, Democritus, ancient Greece, Anthen, one of the best people from there, the best philosophers of that time of Greece before Jesus Christ. There was an author, there was a writer, there was a teacher. Call him whatever you want. His name was Democritus. He said in this quotation that medicine heals diseases of the body, wisdom free the soul from passions. Very great. Medicine heals diseases of the body, but wisdom frees the soul from passion. Now, these are the guys who shaped my critical thinking. Democritus, Greece, the Greeks shaped my critical thinking because the Greeks exposed my ability, my brain to think beyond the box. He tells you wisdom is the best thing. Look for wisdom. Democritus, one of the best philosophers of the time. Before Jesus Christ, there was Democritus. Please continue, Dennis. Let us look for other philosophers. Now, this guy, Baruch de Spinoza. Spinoza was one of the best. Simply Google Spinoza. If it is the first time you are hearing him, you agree with me that the world had many people, but the world had Spinoza. Now, Spinoza, one of the most influential persons of his time, one of the most influential persons of his time was this guy called Baruch de Spinoza. Now, if you have not heard about him, I'm going to invite you to simply go to your Google and ask about Spinoza. If you get to know about this guy, you get to know how he shaped the thinking of the world. Now, Spinoza said in one of his writings and sayings, he said that men believe themselves to be free simply because they are conscious of their actions and unconscious of their causes whereby those actions are determined. Now, this guy brought the theory of cause and effect. Spinoza brought us the theory of cause and effect. Of course, there were others who talked about cause and effect, but Spinoza here brings it very well. The actions have causes, and the actions are determined by these causes, which we can be doing consciously and unconsciously. So at every action, there is a cause and there is a reaction. No, physics comes in around that angle. Spinoza, look for this guy and be inspired by his quotations, be inspired by his works. These are Europeans who are doing the thinking right here, and I'm quoting them for you so that you can be inspired to know how these guys shaped the thinking of the masses of that time in Europe. These were the guys who thought that people must be shaped through thinking. Now, in Africa, we need to value our thinkers. What happens in Africa? You're a thinker, you're a writer. The politicians are going to hate you because they think by criticizing them, they think actually you are attacking them, when actually you are waking them up to do their best. Go and read about Spinoza, you know how his life moved and how actually it ended. Next, Dennis, after Spinoza, it has to look at another guy called Diogenes. Diogenes. I love this guy. And I'm going to tell you a story about this guy. Dennis, you give me 2 minutes to talk about this guy. Now, this guy, I love him because, one, he was one of the most intelligent philosophers. One of the most intelligent philosophers during the time of Alexander the Great. He is the only philosopher who challenged Alexander the Great. He is the only philosopher who told him, "You are nothing." Despite conquering the entire world, Diogenes told Alexander the Great that you know nothing, and you are nothing, and you are fighting for nothing. That power yields nothing. Power yields death. Power yields greed. Now, I'll give a story without even reading the quotation there. What happened was this. Spinoza, Diogenes, a philosopher, lived among the poor, but he was very intelligent, wanted to eat with the poor, wanted to behave like the poor. Now, one day, Alexander the Great is from a war and is moving in his city, and he goes to the slums and he finds this man sitting on the sidelines of a big road. Then everyone says, "I'm going to talk to Diogenes." And Alexander said, "Who is that guy?" They said, "He's the greatest thinker here." So you better go and seek wisdom from this guy. Now, when Alexander the Great goes to where this guy was sitting, Diogenes, I asked him, what can I do for you? How can I help you? I want to give you some money. I want to make you better. Because Alexander the Great had everything. Alexander the Great was about 35 years and he had ruled, had conquered almost the entire world. Now, what does this guy tell him? Diogenes tell Alexander the Great. He tells him, what I want you to do for me, you are obstructing my sunshine. Can you leave? Can you stop standing, obstructing my sunshine? Once you leave, everything's going to be okay. Now, and I mean, Alexander the Great could not believe that there's someone who can tell him, I don't want your wealth. I don't want your money. I don't want your power. I simply want to observe my sunshine. I simply want to enjoy my light. Get out of my way. And end up telling him, look, do you see those bones of the dead people there? Can you see the bones of your grandparents from that heap of bones? It means that when you die, you die. And when you die, you want nothing. You will be equivalent to the poor you are despising. You will be equivalent to the people you have killed. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. That was the guy called Diogenes. Lived when? Many years before the birth of Jesus Christ. But the guy was intelligent, and Alexander was challenged. How could someone think so much like this? How could someone challenge his authority? And everyone respected this philosopher. And Alexander did nothing to this philosopher, simply left very challenged. Now, the quotation here says that when Alexander the Great addressed him with greetings and asked if he wanted anything, Diogenes replied, yes, stand a little out of my sunshine. I've just given the story of this great guy. Now, these are philosophers. What made these countries great? What made Macedonia great as an empire? Alexander Great, as a leader, they had thinkers in society that they respected. They had philosophers, they had writers, they had people who told them what to do, how to fight wars, what to live for, what's morality, what are good roles, how do you manage society, the courtiers of that time. So you can see what made Greece an important place of thinkers, having people like, of course, Plato. I'm going to talk about Plato later. I'm going to talk about Aristotle later. I'm going to talk about people like Socrates, of course, who was their master later on. Now, Diogenes is one of those great thinkers of the time. Then let us look for another author, another thinker of the time. And here comes Blaise Pascal. Blaise Pascal, one of the best thinkers of his time. The man could sit people down and share with them and make them think. Do we see think tanks in Africa today? I want to challenge you. Do we see our professors really helping us? Or they're on blackboards talking about mathematics, chemistry, talking about things that they cannot even prove? Do they change the thinking of people in Africa? Do we have a thinking class in Africa that thinks for the country, that thinks for the clan, that thinks for the society? We don't have. The only person we have, about 2 or 3 people, Professor Mumba and maybe this other guy, Joshua, and a few others who move around talking a few things here and there. But do we have people that shape the thinking of people in Africa? Or we leave it to the politicians to think? Yet politicians, as I normally say, are the most ignorant people we have in Africa. Now, if you have ignorant people leading us, we don't have a thinking class. Where are we headed to? These countries, these societies, these empires had people thinking, and leaders like Alexander the Great respected the thinkers of the time. Now, here Blaise Pascal says that truth is so obscure in these times, and falsehood so established, that unless we love the truth, we cannot know it. Powerful statement. Truth is obscure in these times, and falsehood so established that unless we love the truth, we cannot know it. Today, we hate the truth. Today, we love wrong things. We love falsehood. Someone comes and tells you a lie. Someone comes and tells you a lie that he can cure HIV/AIDS. Trust me, Ugandans are going to go to that church to get cured of HIV/AIDS by eating soil. Trust me, Ugandans will go there. Ugandans will go there and get what they call holy water. Ugandans will go there and get what they call prayers to cure themselves of cancer, of HIV, of diabetes. Because our people in Uganda in particular are full of ignorance, that they worship and treasure falsehoods. Whoever can lie to them can win them. A woman like Mama Fina can lie to them that is going to give them money by making some magic, and they are going to go there to her shrine and give her money. So a woman who wants money from them tells them, come to my shrine, pay this money, I'm going to make you rich. Pastors do the same thing to these people. They make them hate each other. Why? Because our people fear the truth. Our people fear the truth and treasure falsehood. Now, this is what Pascal is talking about. And this guy lived so many years before. You can simply go and Google Blaise Pascal. You get to know what I'm talking about. These are the guys who influenced the thinking of the time. The thinking of the time. And I'm sourcing these images from as above and so below. Now, please then let us continue to another thinker of the time. Yes, Gottfried Leibniz. Gottfried Leibniz is another thinker of the time that graced the soil of Europe and changed the thinking of the people. Now here, Leibniz says that it is necessary to believe that the mixture of evil has produced the greatest possible good. Imagine the mixture of evil can produce the greatest possible good. Otherwise, the evil would not have been permitted. Exactly. Now, there's a theory that some evil can actually bring goodness. And in Uganda, at one time, I can remind you of a man called Andrew Mwenda, who said that the theory was that actually corruption can help a country grow. Now, Andrew Mwenda, if you didn't know, is following into the footsteps of the thinking of Gottfried Leibniz, who thought that actually Europe was going to grow out of corruption. Leibniz was saying that sometimes it is necessary to believe that the mixture of evil has produced the greatest possible good. In other words, people have been saying that even war can be good. Let's go to war, let's go and kill each other. After that, the winner takes it all, and there will be peace. Now, that's the thinking of people like Gottfried Leibniz. They think that out of bad, out of evil, we can also get good. That's the thinking. They are shaping the thinking. Said, look, don't fear to create evil. Don't fear to have things done badly. After all, we can get something good out of all this mess. Let us go to another author and thinker and philosopher of the time. Now, this is my best Russian writer. I have two best Russian writers. I'm going to take a bit of time explaining this guy, and I'll tell you another. I'm going to mention only two Russian writers today that changed me. But number one was this guy called Leo Tolstoy. I have two Russian writers that influenced me. But number one, whose book I read like a Bible, the book is called Confessions, was written by this guy, Leo Tolstoy. And actually, Leo Tolstoy made me an atheist too. At about 13 years, I read this book called The Confessions. Look for it. That book shaped my thinking. And I love Russians for their wisdom, for their courage to write. There are two Russian writers I'm going to mention. One is called Leo Tolstoy, and another one is called, the name is a bit hard. I'm going to, it's called Fyodor Dostoevsky. I'll be talking about him later. Fyodor Dostoevsky. Two Russian writers. Fyodor wrote a book called Crime and Punishment. Now, I love that book. I used to escape from school to go to the public library and read a book called Crime and Punishment. I used to escape from school to read a Russian written book called Crime and Punishment. Now, the second writer who made me escape from school to go and read a book, that guy was called Leo Tolstoy. Now, Leo says in his books, he's an atheist. Number two, Leo attacks the church. Leo exposes stupidity in religion, and Leo attacks the government of the day in Russia, completely against the establishment of the day in Russia. That is Leo Tolstoy. Now, one of the books, what I've told you, that influenced me so much, the book is called Confessions. Confessions. Now, here in that book, Leo Tolstoy attacks the foundation of faith and tells you to be faithful is to be stupid. If someone says, I have faith that I'm going to have a miracle, tell him you have empty air. That is Leo Tolstoy. He completely destroys the idea of faith and religion and miracles and the Catholic Church. He doesn't want to tolerate that in his works. Now, Leo Tolstoy, one of the best writers, Russian writers, who wrote in that time. He wrote books. I'm going to mention a few books that he wrote, which I read, of course. One of the books is called Anna Karenina, a very interesting book detailing the struggles of an average person in Russia. And then he talked about another book which I remember reading was called Death and War. The death of Ivan Ilyich. The death of Ivan Ilyich, another book which Leo wrote, which I remember reading. And of course, the other one was How Much Land Does a Man Need? Look for that book called How Much Land Does a Man Need? In that book, Leo attacks capitalism and shows you the greed of these people who want to amass everything for themselves. And he asks a question, how much land does a man need? At the end of the day, when man dies, how much land do you need to be buried? Is the question. How much greed can people take by stealing everything from the country's coffers? Look what Uganda as a case study. Museveni and his thugs are stealing everything for themselves. Now, Leo asks a question as an author and a thinker and a philosopher and asks, how much land does Museveni want? How much land does these thugs want to be satisfied? Now, when you read these books, you don't remain the same, trust me. You will have a thinking that is radical as mine and say, how much land do these people want from us? Leo asked that question, how many years? Check it. You'll be surprised when he wrote. These are many years ago. But Russia had a wisdom to tolerate thinkers. Yet some people actually witch-hunted them, but Russia had universities. Russia had a thinking class. That's why Russia up to now is a force to reckon with. Because Russia was built on a thinking class of a cream that are cream. A thinking class that shaped the thinking people, the thinking of the people of Russia. Russia became great because it had a thinking class of people like Leo Tolstoy, of people like, I mentioned, of course, they had the name of Fyodor Dostoevsky. I told the book which stuck with me, he wrote, is called Crime and Punishment. Now, when you look at this quotation from Leo, Leo says that real wisdom is not the knowledge of everything, but the knowledge of which things in life are necessary, which are less necessary, and which are completely unnecessary to know. And that is real wisdom. It's not the knowing of everything. You don't need to know everything to be called a person of wisdom. But whatever you know it properly. Know it in depth. Be a star at whatever you know. Go an extra mile at whatever you desire to know. It tells you wisdom comes from specialization, knowing your fault. But at the same time, he's a great philosopher who talks about religion, morality, politics, governance. That is one man package called Leo Tolstoy. Now, I told you that two writers in Russia shaped me, and of course, another writer in Russia. I had many. Another writer in Russia I can recommend is the guy who wrote Darkness at Noon, the book I gave Bobby Wine. Bobby Wine will tell you the lead of Nope. The book is called Darkness at Noon. I gave it to Chaguran Sentamu, the lead of Nope. And the book was written by Arthur Koestler. Simply Google it. The book is called Darkness at Noon, written by Arthur Koestler, which I did as an HSC student in 1998. And I taught it for many years. So I know the book from cover to cover. That book tells you why Uganda is where it is. And it tells you why Uganda must fight out of where it is. That's why I gave it to Bobby Wine. Now, that book shaped my thinking, but that book is written before 1917. I'm repeating, the book is written before 1917. And it shapes that revolution. That book, Darkness at Noon, it looks at what happened in those days of Russia and tells you why countries must have people fight for what is right. Now, these are guys writing in 1920, 1910, 1911, 1912. These guys are writing books that shaped Russia. Russia is strong because Russia was given a strong foundation of critical thinkers. Then we move to another author. I love authors I can talk until cows go home. Now, this is Timothy Leray. Timothy Leray is another great author you can always talk about and want to remember and encourage people to actually look for his books. Timothy Leray is an American author, of course, and a guy who writes, who talks about religion and attacks the stupidity of religion and tells people, look, until Americans think, we are going to sink. That's why I get that quotation always. I normally use it. It's not in this quotation I'm quoting today, but Leroy Timothy, one of the authors of skepticism, tells you that you must either think, T-H-I-N-K, or sink, S-I-N-K. Now, here in the quotation, Leroy tells says that the word religion beautifully defines itself. Look at how this guy defines the religion. He says the word religion beautifully defines itself. Of course, it translates to bind from the Latin word re, which means back, bind back, and regal, another Latin word which means to tie up, bind back and tie up. That's the meaning of religion. In fact, the same definition of religion is given by my star writer. I've just mentioned him, Leo Tolstoy, defines the religion in the same way Timothy defines it. He uses the translation from Latin, which means to bind and tie up. Now, religion, what does it do? It binds you and ties you up. Now, how stupid can people be? When thinkers are telling you that religion simply does two things, it binds you and it ties you up. Now, we tell Africans, please stop worshiping these things you don't know. Stop following these religions you don't know. You are not a Catholic, you are not a Protestant, you are not a Muslim. These are foreign ideologies meant to destroy you. Stop. The definition of religion says to bind you and to tie you back. That's what the religion does. It must keep you together, bind you like a prisoner, and it ties you. This is what Timothy tells you, and this is what Leo Tolstoy says in his book, The Confessions. Look for it. You will find that definition I've just said. He defines religion as a binding force that ties you and makes you stupid. The question I was asked is, why are you Catholic? Why are you Protestant? Why are you born again? Why are you Muslim? Look up the definition of religion. These are things meant to tie you and bind you and put you back so that you don't reason, you don't rise above. This is the definition of religion. And guys have been writing about it, tell you religion is poison. Religion will not tell you anything. Religion is going to destroy you, and you are going to destroy everyone. Religion won't allow you to think for yourself. You are going to be worshiping a certain non-existing entity. This is what writers are telling you. This is what woke me up. And he says all religions are straight jackets, jackets for the straight. You must be so stupid to think that religion is going to give you a focus. In fact, authors say that if you are a bad person, the religion will never make you a good person. You are a bad person, you are a bad person. That's why you see someone who is killing in the name of Allah. Suicide bombers are bombing people, say, peace be upon him, Allah Akbar. And they go ahead and bomb people. Now it means that Islam has not helped them. Instead, has made them actually more dangerous. Now, the religion is that bad. Then let us go ahead as we look for other author to document today. Agatha Christie. Agatha Christie, another very important author of the time. Of course, Agatha is an English woman. Agatha Christie, there you see in that photo. You can look her up. Agatha Christie, one of those guys who shaped the thinking of English people, was Agatha Christie. Agatha says here that you cannot give to people what they are incapable of receiving. Very beautiful quotation. You cannot give to people what they're incapable of receiving. I should repeat it for the third time. You cannot give to people what they're incapable of receiving. Think about it. Now, if someone is incapable of receiving love, why do you give them love? Someone cannot simply be loved. Some people cannot be loved, and it's a fact. You may try your best to love her. She is incapable of receiving your love. So Agatha tells you morality, perception, beliefs in her works. She tells you the concept of analyzing the psyche, the brain of a human being. Some people are naturally poor, that even if you give them money, they feel like they are sick. Give a poor person money, if he's meant to be poor, I'm telling you, he's going to be sick, he's going to drink, he's going to die. You give them money, you kill them, because they're not capable of receiving money. They're supposed to be in that kind of confusion. I'm telling you, I speak it brutally as a philosopher. Some people are incapable of receiving. That even if you try your best to get them out of poverty, you cannot. Why? Their brains are diseased. I've seen women, you give them money, and the next day they are taking the same money to the pastor and donating the entire money you have given them to the pastor. Now, this person is incapable of becoming rich. This person is incapable of receiving. This is what Agatha tells you. Some people are incapable of receiving. You are wasting your time. They cannot be loved. They are so hard to be loved. They cannot appreciate anything. You cannot get them out of poverty. Their brains are sick. So philosophers like Agatha tells you, society, when I'm dealing with you, I'm asking myself, are you capable of receiving what I'm telling you? Like when I'm on Facebook here saying these things, some people cannot understand. And I normally tell them, pass. This is not your message. The moment you cannot understand what I say, it means that this is not your message. It was not meant for you. Pass. Because some people are so dull, they cannot understand. They can't understand. So this is what Agatha tells you. You are going to think, we are thinking this person is violent, is incapable of receiving your knowledge. So move on. Then let's move on to another author and philosopher. Yes, Confucius, one of my best teachers. Confucius, I love this guy. I've got quotations from him, like I think like 50 quotations from this guy alone. All of us know where Confucius came, and all of us know how it changed the entire spectrum of Asia. I won't even talk about China. I will just talk about Asia, and how he went beyond Asia and shaped the thinking of the entire world. One man, Confucius. And today, we have a so-called religion called Confucianism. If you permit me, we have a religion I use the word religion in quotes because people loved this guy. This guy existed before what Jesus Christ was created. I repeat that one. Confucius existed before what Jesus Christ was created. And Confucius spoke words of wisdom Jesus Christ never spoke. Confucius had masses following him Jesus Christ never got. Why? Because Jesus Christ was created, yet Confucius was a real person who lived, who people saw, who taught people in thousands. One man would sit people down and teach them, and everyone goes back home schooled. There were no schools as we know them today, but Confucius was the teacher, was the philosopher, was the class monitor, and the class was the examiner. One man who thought for the entire Asia was a man called Confucius. Now, simply Google him. You will believe me that this guy was a thinker. But he, in this quotation, it says, by 3 methods we may learn wisdom. Listen to this. By 3 methods we may learn wisdom. One, first, by reflection. Reflection means what? Think back. Number 2, which is noblest, and second, by imitation. Imitation means try to do as others are doing. One is said, reflect, think back. Number 2, imitate. Try to copy what others did. And this is the easiest one. And then it said the third one, by experience. And this is the bitterest. I love this quotation. 3 ways of learning wisdom. Number 1, you reflect. Look at what others have done and learn from their mistakes and their strengths. Number 2, imitate. Try to copy the good things they did. Number 3, experience it. Experience it means that go through the worst they did and then come out a victor or a failure or dead. Experiencing it is the bitterest, is the worst. So Confucius tells you, in fact, when I was reading Chinese philosophy and military, the name Confucius was coming up 100 times. When I was reading the Japanese, still we are copying Confucius. Chinese relied on Confucius. Confucius was a military strategist. Tells you how to fight a war. Tells you how to think with people. These guys were themselves the universities of the time. One person becomes a university. He sits, talks to 100 people, and everyone goes back home thinking. Now, the question is, do we have these thinkers in Africa today? Or all of them have been compromised? All of them are thinking about survival. No one is there to think for Africa, for their countries, to how to change the thinking terrain of the people. All of us want to survive, build a house, buy a car, die. The question is, when do we get more Confucius that shaped the entire Asia, that influenced the entire world through thinking? Then let us leave Confucius and go to another writer. Confucius, remember, as I told you, is a Chinese philosopher. Now, another guy whose books I read is called John Steinbeck. John Steinbeck, I read his books. A great writer called John Steinbeck. In fact, I taught his books. I remember teaching the books of John Steinbeck. John is an American author. Of course, he wrote books like Grapes of Wrath, which I remember teaching, Grapes of Wrath, which I remember teaching, and of course studying, of Mice and Men, and of course, Once There Was a War. I loved that, Once There Was a War. I taught these books. I read them, but also I taught The Grapes of Wrath. For some 3 years, I was teaching that book. Now, I love John Steinbeck. Why? He analyzes war. Like if John Steinbeck sat on the table with you to analyze Gaza and Israel, you will live there knowing which side is going to lose, which side is going to win, and why. And then he'll tell you, we don't need this war. Now, that was how good he was. An analysis of events. That was John Steinbeck. Now, I've told you 3 books, which under his name, The Grapes of Wrath, The Mice and Men, of Mice and Men, and of course, Once There Was a War. That is John Steinbeck. Now, John Steinbeck here in this question says that an unbelievable truth can hurt a man. I repeat that. An unbelievable truth can hurt a man much more than a lie. You can imagine. Tell someone the truth and they are going to be annoyed with you. Like I normally say, look, Museveni's regime has stolen our country. Museveni's regime has mortgaged Uganda. Museveni's regime has killed more people than any other leader in Uganda. I've been saying that. And it's the fact. Why? He has been the longest serving president. He has been a dictator and a thief. Now, that's the truth. Now, when you say it, people are going to be hurt. But the fact is that the man has overruled, the man has killed people, the man has stolen land of the people, the man has mortgaged the country. Uganda has the highest debt burden it has never had before. Our debt burden is beyond our income as a country. We have more debts than what we earn. That's the economics. Anyone can check it. Now, it's a fact. Now, when I say Museveni and these goons have stolen from the country and has made us debt burdened, someone is going to be hurt. But the point is, I'm saying the truth. Now, this is what John Steinbeck says. People will hate you for speaking the truth. But people will love those who tell them the lies. So he says here that it takes a great courage to back truth unacceptable to our times. And that's true. It takes you to have courage to stand and say, please, we have a dictatorship in Uganda. We have a thieving government in Uganda. We have the most corrupt government in Uganda. It takes courage to say that. And finally, it says there is a punishment for it. That's true. When you speak the truth in Uganda, you're going to be punished. They're going to say you hate the government. They're going to say you are supporting foreign allies who are fighting the government. You know, what else can I say about this quotation? It is to the point. It says the punishment. There is a punishment for speaking the truth. And it is usually crucifixion. It is usually what? Crucifixion. Crucifixion. They'll put you on the cross. In other words, they're going to imprison you, kill you, and you know the rest is history. Now, look at this writer with one quotation that is full of knowledge and full of facts and full of wisdom. Speak the truth, people are going to hate you. Speak the truth, they are going to punish you, and in most cases, they are going to kill you. He warns you in advance. Then it's another author. Another author, please. Yes, this is my guy I mentioned about. I won't even waste more time on him. I love this Russian writer, and I've been writing it in my books to the extent of escaping from Blessed Sacrament Kimanya Secondary School, a very big school in Masaka City, to go to Masaka National Library, Masaka Public Library, because our school lacked the books of Fyodor Dostoevsky. And that book would only be found in Masaka Library, public library. So I would escape from school, not to go to dance or do any other bad thing, but to go to a public library and read his book. What was his book? His book is called Crime and Punishment. Anyone can look for it. It's a big book. I read that book page by page, noting down notes as if I was studying his book, and I was not. Which class was I? I was in senior 3. Escaping from a school to go to the public library to read one book by one Russian writer, Fyodor Dostoevsky. And that book is called Crime and Punishment. I never had a chance to get my copy, but I was reading it from the library. Why was I reading this book? The book tells the story of Russia. It tells the story of the suffering people. It tells the story of a government that kills its people, of a corrupt regime, and a people wanting to fight back. Now, when you read the story, every page comes with a thriller. You see people at the verge of death. You see a person who's driven to go and kill. Someone goes to kill to earn a living. So when you talk about snipers of today in the movies, you talk about hired mercenaries. Dostoevsky writes about them in a book he wrote so many years ago. He tells you someone can be driven to go and commit murder simply he wants to get a bar of soap. And why is he killing people? Because he lacks a pint of milk and he has a child at home. Go get time, look for one book called Crime and Punishment. You you conquer with me that this guy is one of the best gifts Russia gave to the world. His name is Fyodor Dostoevsky. He wrote Crime and Punishment. And of course, he wrote other books. But I loved Crime and Punishment more. I loved Crime and Punishment more by this guy called Fyodor. And of course, Fyodor wrote another book called Demons. Look for it if you are a believer and read Demons. Demons, trust me, your thinking is going to change. Russians hated these so-called gods of yours. Russians were atheists. And I was surprised how these writers were atheists, thinkers of the time. Look for his book called Demons. You appreciate what I'm saying. The other book he wrote is called The Gambler. The Gambler. The Gambler is another beautiful book from Fyodor. But I loved one book from him more. It's called Crime and Punishment. In this question, it says what? It says, don't be overwise. Don't be overwise. Fling yourself straight into life without deliberation. Don't be afraid. The flood will bear you to the bank and set you safe on your feet again. Look at that wisdom there. Think for it. I won't even explain it. He says, don't be overwise. Fling yourself straight into the life without deliberation. Don't be afraid. The flood will bear you to the bank and set you safe on your feet again. Whatever you do it wholeheartedly. Don't fear. Somehow, somewhere, there's going to be benevolence. And somehow, somewhere, the flood, the bad things are going to take you to the best part of your life. It tells you, risk it. That's the meaning of that quotation. Risk it. Because at the end of the day, without risk, you won't achieve. But if you risk, the floods, the challenges of life are going to take you to the safer part of your life. Continue. Dennis with another author of our time. Not even our time. These are guys who wrote before. Now look at this C.S. Lewis. I've been always sharing quotations from this guy. One of the best thinkers of the time is this guy called C.S. Lewis. Look for him. He wrote beautifully, and he is a great thinker that Europe has produced. And here says that one of the most cowardly things ordinary people do is to shut their eyes to facts. Beautiful. One of the most cowardly things ordinary people do is to shut their eyes to facts. Can I repeat that? People who are ordinary, in other words, peasants in Africa, don't want facts. They don't want facts. I'll repeat that. Anyone comes, tells them lies, they are going to accept the lies. Come, tell them the facts, they are going to hate you. Now, that's one of the most cowardly things ordinary people do. And when he says ordinary, means the peasants, the less intellectuals, people are moved by the wind, the mob. Remember, the mob in Uganda can kill you for being homosexual, but they will never kill a politician stealing from them. Now, are these people thinking honestly, and they not cowards, that they are going to lynch a homosexual and leave a politician who takes their children to die in Iraq, who takes their children to die in Somalia, who takes their children to die in Congo, who takes their children to die in all these wars elsewhere? This one president takes their children to die in war, and they are going to vote for him, but they are going to hate a homosexual who has done nothing wrong to them. But they are going to praise a thief who steals money meant for hospital, who steals money meant for roads. Now, this is how we interpret this, that people who are ordinary, who think like street thinkers, don't want facts. They shut their eyes to facts. Tell them that this regime is bad. Tell them that you must wake up. They will hate you. Tell them that actually Europeans lied to you about gods. These were political tools used to rule you. There was no Jesus. There was no, this miracle was never Muhammad never existed the way it is. These are all political tools used to really put you in line. They are going to hate you. How dare you talk about Muhammad? They don't want facts. They rather bring their sword and kill you than actually listen to your facts. Now, then let us look for another quotation. People don't want facts. This is what I'm sharing with you from CS. Now, I loved Malcolm X. All of you know, would dare to think how Malcolm X died. He was killed. Why? Because he defended black people to get their independence, to get their freedoms, to get their rights in a racist America. I'll repeat it. I've always said that America is a racist country, and I always don't fear to talk about it. I'll repeat it again. America is a racist country built on racism and still sustained on racism. I'll repeat that for a third time. America is a racist country built on racism and is sustained on racism. Now, Malcolm X was killed by the same people. Why? Malcolm X championed the cause to unite black people in America who are being treated like slaves when they had been freed out of slavery hundreds of years, but still they lived like paupers in their own country. Malcolm X championed a movement to change the narrative about black people in the US. He rallied them. Malcolm X moved countries, rallying support. He was on TV. He was writing books. He was contributing to journals, waking up people, telling racist America to treat fairly black people. What happened? He was shot on stage. He was shot. He was killed. What happened to the killer? You and me know what happened to the killer. Now, Malcolm X is remembered for having spoken the truth about black people in the US, to having championed the reason why there was fairness, why it was important to give equal treatment to black people too, because they are also Americans. They have been born there. They have served in the plantation. They were slaves. Why do you treat them when they are free people and you still treat them like slaves? There were laws that were strictly meant to target black people, yet they were saying they were independent. Look at the black people in America today. Where are they? Look at the states in which they are. Look at the states in which they are. Still Then I'm back. Am I back on Facebook? Yeah. Thank you so much. I had a glitch, and think I should continue. Then thank you so much for this. We are talking about Malcolm X, and I was explaining to you why I consider America to be one of the most racist countries in the world, and why actually it had to ensure that Malcolm X is killed simply because he championed the cause of black people in America, and he was saying, "Look, we are all citizens. We are all Americans. We need a fair share of the national cake. We don't need to leave us behind." And I was saying that America up to now has policies that actually target minorities. Anyone can challenge me on that? America has policies, has laws that still target minorities and make them really live in poverty. When you look at some of these policies still don't favor minorities. And then they come and claim to be a country of freedom. They go around the world parading themselves as champions of freedom when actually they are against the rights of people that live within their own territory. That is America for you. Then let us continue with another philosopher, another thinker of our time. I'll talk about Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde, one of the best guys I love, is Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde. I'll make it a bit bigger on my side so I can be able to explain this. Oscar Wilde is known for so many things, so many good things, but of course, he had his own challenges. Um, Oscar Wilde is, of course, an Ireland author. I remember reading some of his works, and I was mesmerized. I was really impressed by Oscar Wilde, one of the best thinkers of his time, one of the people thought who changed the thinking terrain of people in the United Kingdom and elsewhere in the world. His name is called Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde, apart from being a very good writer, Oscar Wilde had a family, had a wife, had children, and Oscar Wilde turned out to be homosexual. That's why I wanted to share his life story here. Oscar Wilde turned out to be homosexual. What happened? Society forgot every good thing Oscar done, and society concentrated on his homosexuality. And Oscar, for the first time, was tried, was put in a court and tried for homosexuality. You can't believe it. Now, when you see anti-homosexuality laws coming in Uganda, this guy is on the screen. Oscar Wilde, or Wilde, was tried for homosexuality. And what happened? He was so depressed that he ended up dying. He was so depressed that he ended up dying. In fact, his family, upon his death, his family ran away for safety. They went elsewhere. They went to a different country. And when they went to a different country, they changed their name of a family. They called themselves Holland. They changed their identity. Why? Because Oscar Wilde had been given a very bad image, very, very bad image, tried for homosexuality. And of course, people began hating him. Why? Because they said, "Oh, this guy who was a good writer is homosexual. Yet he has a woman, he has children." Oscar Wilde faced it hard and ended up dying a very early death. And he said here in this quotation, "If you want to tell people the truth, make them laugh. Otherwise, they will kill you." Look at that quotation. It matches what I've just told you about Oscar. He said, "If you want to tell people the truth, make them laugh. Otherwise, they will kill you." And they killed him. They killed him psychologically. They killed Oscar because once they knew that Oscar was a homosexual, Oscar was hated by almost everyone that loved him. Why? Because they happened to know that Oscar was actually homosexual. He had a wife, he had children, but Oscar was homosexual. And he was hated. But look at that quotation. It says, "If you want to tell people the truth, make them laugh. Otherwise, they will kill you." Oscar was psychologically killed by the people he had helped to think. Then let us look for another. Let us look at another author and see what they have to offer. The program is called profiling. The program is called Profiles. Now I'm going to introduce you another great writer. I love this guy. I remember teaching his works. This man is called Henrik Ibsen. This man is called Henrik Ibsen. And Henrik Ibsen is a Norwegian. The other time I was telling you that I had Norwegians influencing me. Now, one of them is this guy called Henrik Ibsen. Great mind, great thinker from Norway. So kudos to Norway. You gave me Henrik Ibsen. I taught his works. I influenced students using Ibsen's thinking because Ibsen shaped my thinking. Now, what did Ibsen do? The Norwegian writer uh, Henry John Ibsen. Now, Ibsen wrote a book called The Birth of Modernism. Wrote a book called The Birth of Modernism. Of course, he wrote so many others, but The Birth of Modernism is a very good book. It tells you about modernity and how it actually can become disastrous to humanity. Now, a woman cannot be herself. Look at this quotation here. He said that a woman cannot be herself in the society of the present day, which is an exclusively masculine society, which with laws framed by men and with a judicial system that judges feminine conduct from a masculine point of view. I'm going to repeat this one. Look at how feminist Ibsen is in this quotation. He says, a woman cannot be herself in the society of the present day. That a woman will never be a good woman in today's society. And he adds, which is exclusively masculine society. A society of today exclusively favors men. Remember, the writer is a Norwegian. He says that today's society favors men. Therefore, a woman is going to be, it's going to be hard for a woman to rise up. Then he says, with laws, society favors men with what? With laws framed by men. And that's true. The laws we have that are against women, the laws we have that are against abortion, for example, abortion in Africa, the laws that we have that are against women to advance in society, to own their body anatomy, these laws, trust me, are made by men. Mainly the laws that oppress women are made by men, because men actually, in most cases, form the majority of people that make laws. Now, this is what Ibsen writes, and so many years ago, by the way. He said that with laws framed by men and with a judicial system that judges feminine conduct from a masculine point of view. Very good. How do you judge a woman based on a man's perception? You can't do that. You can't wear a miniskirt. You can't wear a panty. You can't wear the jeans. You have to wear long dresses. Why do you judge a woman using the lenses of a man? This is what Henrik Ibsen, his full name is Henry John Ibsen. But here we write Henrik Ibsen. This is what Henrik Ibsen writes. It tells you, why should you judge a woman using the approach of a man, using laws made by a man? Judge a woman fairly. Then let us go and look for another writer. That's been a great show of profiling. Today I decided to profile so many of them so that I don't repeat them. George Eliot. George Eliot. Look at this writer. You'll see a photo of a lady, but look what the name is, George Eliot. Now I want you to go and research. Why is this woman having a name, George Eliot? I want to give it to you as food for thought. Then you will know why the photo you have there doesn't match the name. Yet the person behind the name is a woman. The name is George Eliot. George Eliot wrote beautifully. Now, George Eliot, in the days of United Kingdom, where men were favored over women, there was a time in the UK, I will tell you this, United Kingdom, there was a time when women were never allowed to write. There was a time when women were never allowed, I'll repeat it. There was a time in Europe when women were never allowed to write. There was a time in the USA when women were never allowed to vote. Look for it. Now, if you cannot allow a woman to vote, how would we allow a woman to publish a book? Women were supposed to be mothers and were kept for men to come and marry them. How would a woman write a book? So many women who are intelligent end up writing books under pseudonyms. There were many women. In fact, some people say that some of the books of Shakespeare were written by women. Some people have said that this must have been a thinking of a woman to write this scene. This must be a thinking of a woman. There's no man who can think like that. Many people have said that some of the works of Shakespeare were stolen from women writers who were not allowed to publish books. That was your United Kingdom of the time. That was your England of the time, which was biased against women. Now, when you look at these writers who wrote beautifully, some of them were women, but they couldn't speak up. They couldn't speak up. Look at the book like The Marriage Question, Cyrus Manner. Look at those books and see how George Eliot wrote. How George Eliot wrote. Now, George Eliot, of course, wrote so many other books which have been in literature in Africa. So many other books. Simply go and Google the name George Eliot. Now, let me look at this quotation. Here, the quotation says, "Examine your words well, and you will find that even when you have no motive to be false, it is a very hard thing to say the exact truth." Examine your words well, and you will find that even when you have no motive to be false, it is the very hard thing to say the exact truth. Exactly. Truth is bitter. Speak the truth, end up in jail in Africa. Truth is so bitter to people. Then let us look for another writer. Let us look at another writer. It's an interesting show looking at. Now, I love Confucius. Of course, I've said Confucius is my mentor, this Chinese philosopher. I won't even waste time on this one again because I've mentioned Confucius. He says to govern means to rectify. And that is true. Governing means to correct. That's the meaning of the word rectify from a legal point of view. Rectify means put back to order. Now, if you lead on the people with corrections, who will dare not to be correct? Exactly. That is to govern. I ask politicians, look at the books of Confucius. At least look for what people have written about him. You will get knowledge and wisdom. Politicians in Africa, look for the works of Confucius so that you can be helped to think. It tells you here that to govern means to rectify. To lead people means to lead them by correcting the weaknesses of society. In Uganda, whoever wants to win a vote must fool people. Number two, must accept the foolishness from society. If you want to get a vote in Uganda, tell them that in fact HIV can be healed through prayers. They are going to give you votes. But is that one right? Tell them that in fact our problem as Africans are the Europeans who are stealing from us, who are doing well. Don't tell them the weaknesses of your own politicians. Tell them how other people are bad and they're taking everything away from you. But don't tell them that their own politicians actually are the big time thieves. Tell them that, look, to be better as people here in Africa, we must go back to the traditions of worshiping Jesus Christ. Don't tell them that actually this Jesus Christ was brought by the imperials to divide us. Because when you say Jesus never existed, when you say Jesus is a concoction, they are going to say, how dare you? How dare you to talk about our Jesus Christ? They won't give you a vote. Now, this is what Confucius says. The society must be changed by the leaders because this is what government does. But what does government do in Africa is the question I always ask. What does government do in Africa? It is to confuse people and put them back to zero. Why? They need votes. Then let us continue, please. Let us continue. Confucius, I will stop at that Confucius and I go to another author. Aldous Huxley, I like this guy. Aldous Huxley, I've been quoting him in my books. I've been quoting this guy in my books. Why do I love him? This guy, if I remember very well, he wrote more than 30 books. He wrote more than 30 books, and he influenced the psychological path of the thinking of Americans and Europeans. That one guy called Aldous Huxley. He influenced the thinking of first English people. And then he changed the terrain of thinking of people in Europe, but also in the America. Now, what did Huxley write? Of course, some of you are humanists. You know that we have one of the founders as Huxley. The name is Huxley. Go and connect this name here and the founder of Organized Humanists, one of the guys who registered Humanists International. It was called Huxley. Go and find out the connection between that Huxley and this guy here. Then you will know why this guy is so important. Aldous Huxley, one of the best thinkers of England and Europe and the US. Now, one of the books I read from this guy is a book called Brave New World. It's a book called Brave New World. Now, when you look at Brave New World, that book tells you the future in the present. He wrote it. Look for it. At least you get a summary. The book tells you the future in the present. He wrote it. When you look at Brave New World, the book he wrote so many years ago tells you what is happening today. This is why authors and philosophers have a predictive eye to look at the future. Look for the book is called The Brave New World. Another book is called The Art of Seeing. Those two books, I told you, Huxley wrote over 30 books. Go and check it. But I've mentioned only two. The Art of Seeing and The Brave New World. I loved The Brave New World more because it changed the world. It predicted the future of the world. Now, here in the quotation here, it says that the victim of manipulation does not know that he is a victim. I repeat this quotation. The victim of mind manipulation does not know that he is a victim. To him, the walls of his prison are invisible, and he believes himself to be free. Exactly. Let me repeat it once. The victim of mind manipulation does not know that he is a victim. To him, also put her, the walls of his prison are invisible, and he believes himself to be free. Exactly. Now, someone who has been lied by a pastor, let me put it home in Africa. When someone is going to the church, Pastor Jingo is going to manipulate him. Pastor Adibayo is going to manipulate him and tell him that actually the church has solutions for all his problems. And this man is going to sell his property and is going to bring money to this pastor. Because the pastor has told him that if you bring money and you build a radio station for God, God is going to reward you with miracle money. God is going to reward you with lots of favors. It will be a favored child of God. This poor man and poor woman is going to go and sell his property, is going to go and get all his salary and take it to church. Now, when Kato Mukasa comes on TV and say, please, these pastor preeners are thieves. These pastor preeners are thieves and are instead stealing from you. Now, the victim of mind manipulation is going to hate Kato Mukasa. And if so necessary, is going to find a way of hurting him. But Kato Mukasa is simply trying to tell him, look, this pastor is actually making himself rich at your own ignorance. Now, this is what Huxley says. I told you Huxley is one of the founders of organized humanism. Now, look at his writing. It tells you that the victim of mind manipulation does not know that he is a victim, and that is true. Someone who is in prison of mind, he thinks Jesus is the savior, he is the Alpha and Omega. I'm telling that person doesn't know that it's a lie. He's going to die with that lie, but he thinks that is true. A person who thinks that Muhammad is real, that actually there is a heaven where they are going to be given 72 virgins. You can imagine, how can people be so stupid to believe that when you are dead and you are rotten and become soil, you will still come up with a penis to have sex with 72 virgins? How stupid can people be? But tell this one to a radical Muslim that actually when you die, you die. There won't be 72 of virgins to be given to you. He's going to get a sword, he's going to get a gun and shoot you. Why? He is a victim of mind manipulation. This is what Huxley, one of the founders of organized humanism, said. Then let us look for another author. The program is called Profiling. We are looking at authors because there are so many that influence. Robert Heinlein, one of the most sought after thinkers of his time. Robert Heinlein is one of those guys who also wrote beautifully and changed my thinking. Now here I said that I'm free no matter what rules surround me. No matter what rules surround me. I'm free no matter what rules surround me. If I find them tolerable, I'm free. I tolerate them. If I find them too obnoxious, like confusing, I break them. I love this quotation. If I find the rules bad to me, that's the meaning of the word obnoxious, bad, intolerable, I break them. This guy tells you, Robert, that please, whenever someone makes rules which are bad, go ahead and break them. Please, I also repeat this one as a lawyer. If someone makes rules which are bad, someone is stealing your land using rules, please break the rules. Now he goes ahead and says, I'm free because I know that I am alone. And I am alone. I'm morally responsible for everything I do. Now here it tells you, be accountable. Know that you are alone. You fight this battle alone. And know that you are going to be responsible for your actions. Now be responsible. But it tells you beautifully that if a rule is bad, please never fear to break it. Let me tell you an example. If the government imposed tax on sleeping with your woman, on having children, is that a fair rule? But it's a rule. Break it. Fight it back. In South Africa, there was apartheid, where black people were never allowed to marry Caucasians, where black people were never allowed to eat in the same restaurants with Caucasians. Black people were never allowed to go in the same schools with Caucasians. Was that rule right? Was that law right? It was wrong. So Robert Heinlein tells you, if a rule is wrong, please break it. Please break it. Now, then next, let us look at the next author. The next author, please. Yes, Albert Einstein, the best thinkers of our time, is Albert Einstein. I can't finish what he has done in life, but I can tell you that actually Albert Einstein talked about the war in Gaza as it is today. I should also tell you that. And actually Albert Einstein was against Zionism. Go and look for his history. You'll be surprised to know who he was, but also why he was against Zionism. Now, Albert Einstein, all of you who have cared to research know who he was. But let me give you this quotation here. Albert says that blind belief in authority is the greatest enemy of truth. Blind belief in authority is the greatest enemy to the truth. And Albert was born into the German Empire. The German Empire of his time. This is when Albert Einstein was born. And of course, when you trace his roots, my research showed that actually he had Jewish blood. He can be traced from Israel of today. And one of the best thinkers of the world is Albert Einstein. Go and find his formula. Go and find his scientific formulas and see how much he has contributed to physics in this world. That guy, Albert Einstein. But he tells you, remember, he was an unbeliever. Albert Einstein was like me, was an atheist. He said, blind belief in authority is the greatest enemy of truth. That's why Albert Einstein was against Zionism. Yet Albert Einstein can be traced back in that very country. Go and research. You get to know why this man is praised up to now for the contribution he made to the world. Next, then let us look for another philosopher and author and writer, J.W. von Guth. J.W. John Guth. Now, John Guth, one of those best writers, of course, to come out of Europe, is J.W. von Guth. Guth here says that we don't have to visit a madhouse to find disordered minds. We do not have to visit a madhouse to find disordered minds. Our planet is the mental institution of the universe. Our planet is the mental institution of the universe. And that's true. Think for yourself, and that is it. You don't think for yourself, you are finished. So, this is what Guth says. Dennis, let us continue. Let us continue, Dennis, with another author. Dennis, I'm going to end with Voltaire. You skip others. I'm going to end with Voltaire. After this, please help me and put Voltaire. I'll end with that one. This is Plato. I love this guy. This is Plato. I love this guy. Dennis, help me when I finish this. Let me finish with Voltaire, because I won't be able to do all these authors I prepared for today. Plato, one of my favorite thinkers of the time, is a man called Plato. Plato, remember, was a student of Socrates. Plato was a student of Socrates, and of course Plato gave us Aristotle, and of course Aristotle gave us, the line continues. But I'm talking about Plato today, not Socrates. I'm talking about Plato, the man who thought and changed the terrain of the thinking of Athenians, of the thinking of Greece, Macedonia, and of course Africa, because Plato at one point came to Kemetic Egypt to learn. Plato came to Kemetic Egypt to learn, and Plato changed the thinking of the times. So Plato, I love Plato. Now Plato here says that the one who learns and doesn't practice is like the one who plows and plows and plows and never plants. Beautiful. If you are going to spend time learning and you don't put in practice what we are learning, you are wasting your time. So that's why I'm saying today we are going to end with the next author and writer and thinker. Because if we teach these things to people and people don't pick lessons and people don't practice the lessons, we are wasting our time. This is what Plato says. One of my favorite is Plato. Then let us go to Voltaire. I want to end it with Voltaire because he's my #1 French influencer. I love this guy. I've been talking about this guy in all my books. I always remember to mention this French giant of a thinker. I love French people, but I love them because of one man, Voltaire. Voltaire changed me. Voltaire made me an atheist completely. One book of Voltaire like this, I always mention it. The book is called Philosophical Dictionary. It was called Philosophical Dictionary. There's the way they call it in French, but it was translated as Philosophical Dictionary. The book was written in 1734. The book that changed my thinking was written in 1734. That book was given to me by my father. It's called Philosophical Dictionary. Go look for that book. The writer is called John. The full name is Voltaire. The full name is Marie. The full name I think is John Marie Voltaire. And one of the best thinkers of the time is that guy, French, as France has ever produced, Voltaire Franco Marie. Voltaire Franco Marie. Now, in the book I read that changed me. The book is called Philosophical Dictionary. Voltaire attacks the foundation of the Catholic Church. And he tells French people that, look, these priests are stealing from us. These priests eat better than us. These priests sleep better than us. But at the end of the day, They aren't even holy as we think. They are sleeping with women and they are fathering children. This is France, 1734. Voltaire, a philosopher, a thinker, a teacher, tells French people that, look, avoid the Catholic Church like you avoid the plague. The Catholic Church has combined with the kings of the time and they are stealing from French people. Arise and fight the rulers plus the Catholic Church. The Pope is not immortal. I mean, the Pope is not mortal. The Pope is not sacrosanct. The Pope can be criticized. One man stands and writes and goes preaching against the Pope and against the government. One man called Voltaire contributed to the French Revolution all of you have heard. Remember, the book came out in 1734. Voltaire changed the thinking of French people, one man, plus, of course, others. And when did the French Revolution begin? 1734, the man changes the thinking. Now, just a few years after that, the French people are up in arms and they are fighting, one, the government, two, the priests, including the Catholic fathers and all those people. And what happens? The revolution starts and France changes. And the autocrats fall. Why? Because of authors, because of teachers, because of philosophers like Voltaire. Philosophers like Voltaire. Go and look into your history and ask yourself, what was the contribution of Voltaire in the formation of the French Revolution? You will be surprised how he wrote and how he was convincing people to chase away the bad leaders, but also don't believe in the Catholic Church. And because of that, I was young when I was reading his book. I said, okay, the Pope can be criticized. He can also do wrong. The Reverend Fathers can also do wrong. So this man is right. This is why I rejected Catholicism. Thanks to Franco-Marie Voltaire. I want to thank you so much all for having me today, and of course for giving me this time. Dennis, thank you so much for giving me this time. There's been a great discussion, of course, sharing with you. I looked at all these authors. Why? Because I have so many authors and I cannot be here and handle one by one. I'll be taking a year. I better summarize them in 1.5 hours to tell you that these philosophers changed my thinking. These philosophers changed the terrain of the world. In the next show about profiles, I'll be handling different authors and telling you the works they did and how they influenced the world. I want to encourage you to please subscribe to YouTube channel, Humans TV Africa, and please give us all the support, share, like, subscribe, inform people about Humans TV Africa. Today, we're talking about profiles and, of course, the sages that changed the world. Dennis Bongole, who is our producer in Uganda, I want to thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be able to share this with the public. And the public, thank you so much for giving me the time to be here with you. Stay better, stay positive, and see you in the next one. Thank you.